Good day and good evening and welcome to Palace of the Dead with me, Caetsu Chaiji, but you can just call me Kai. Yesterday, I was talking a lot about frame drops and problems. I suspected, after a private stream test after the stream, that the problem was that sometimes when you upload a video, YouTube will just not give you very much connection, so it takes 30 years to complete. And the only thing you can do to fix that is stop the upload, cancel, and try again. And maybe you'll get the fast lane. I suspected that that was what was happening, because when I tried the private stream after the actual stream yesterday, I had no problems. Like, actually no problems. It looked fine. So an hour before this stream, I tested my connection again. Now we had problems again. I tried rebooting my router. Didn't work. I tried restarting my PC. Didn't work. I tried giving OBS admin privileges. Didn't work. Actually made other things on the computer run, like, worse. Because, like, Final Fantasy XIV is quite demanding of a game, it turns out, when you have high graphic settings. What did work, and someone actually suggested this in the stream chat yesterday, was remove the router from the equation and just plug it directly into the PC. Just one less internet cable. And just go straight. So I think my router is dying. So for those that wanted the like some roundup on that, like some closure on the yesterday situation, there you go. Yeah, actually, Kidby, it's even sadder because it's not that old. My router before this one ran until it had a problem with the button that turns it on. Had like a little like click where it would like hold in the turn on button. It just stopped holding in at some point. Exactly, Coco. And the router just basically couldn't stay turned on because it would just pop out. I ran for like a few days with a system where it just had taped the power button down on that router. That was before I started streaming, by the way. Could you imagine? Just streaming, actually holding it together with tape. But yeah, that seemed to have fixed it. With that said, hey Yaris, hey FFXIV, hey Kiwi, hey Vince. Been a bit, Vince, I hope you're doing well. Hey Ceres, hey Cat, hey Ridlian, hey Agent Monica, and hey Coco, hope you're all doing very well. Time to buy a rock spider. I mean, I would probably have to buy a new one, whatever the case. Like, this isn't working. This isn't optimal. But yeah, last time with Palace of the Dead, we died on like floor 180 as Pixomancer. I got some tips in the comments of that stream, like specifically comments after the stream, and the big mistake I made, according to everyone that commented on that, was that I should have, like, under no circumstances have used my last strength and steel. I should have tried any other means than that, because they basically could see that, well, now he's lost. Like, when I used strength and steel there. Because they knew that I would need the full strength and steel to make it. And then, like, that completely sidesteps the part where I needed to use a lust near the end of the fight to establish enough vuln so that I might be able to make it for the burst. Which I also didn't do because I was so focused on just surviving because I didn't have steel. And that didn't really work. And then we didn't make it. And then we went back to the start as Machinist. A cup of tea up. Hope you're doing well. That's you? Oh. And then we went back in as Machinist and got to floor 40. I believe the aim I went for was, well, let's see if we can at least get back to level 60 before we finish. 18ly, there are 200 floors in total. But generally, it is sort of commonly accepted that the hard part is like the last 50, and some would say it's even like the last 30. Something to that effect. Which of course means that there's a huge part of the journey that is just us maxing, relaxing, and hanging out and talking about whatever while I just work it through. Whiskey says, are we going for the Necromancer title? That would be nice, but I'm mostly just trying to do something for fun. And learn something. Oh, I see, Vince. Well, I hope that it's it's at least something that you enjoy doing. Like, that's the important part. And yeah, that is a lot of flaws. Like, that's actually the worst part, is that there are so many flaws. So ridiculously many flaws that, like, just take up time when it really comes to it. Like, when it really comes to it, the first 100 flaws are almost, like, just there. But it kind of makes sense for them to be there, because the first 100 flaws has, like, a story. So you can't just remove them. Although, I mean, I would argue that you could probably easily just make it so that you could start at floor 101. But I guess one part of the difficulty is also making it back up there each time. But yeah, I don't know, Whiskey. I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm that great at Palace of the Dead solo. I've just, I guess I'm decently good at making the most of my toolkit so I can get really far, and then I die to the first thing where it really matters that you know what you're doing. Oh yeah, that could work too, Gleaming. Like, that could be equally good. That they just make it so that you have the story mode, and then there's a different 100 floors, i.e. the 101 to 200 as like a new game plus kind of thing. Like, that could absolutely work as well. And the main reason why I said they could just make it so you could start at floor 101 would be, I mean, like, that's equally as easy, right? And making it so that you can still choose to start at floor 1 also means that, like, the people that are playing for the high score, for example, would probably be quite annoyed that you remove the first 100 floors. Because the first 100 floors are also, like, a significant portion of, like, farming score, right? And you could argue that, yeah, well, they could just rebalance that so that it makes sense. But it's also just, that would be like taking away, like, a sort of game mode that some people are actively enjoying. And there's no need for that. I would just be fine with if you could start at floor 101. Like, that would be good enough for me. That would be good enough for me. Strength. But I think also that's a huge part of the reason why, as you might have seen with Heaven on High and Eureka Authors, that In those deep dungeons, they just let you go, like, there's only 100 floors. And I would argue that, like, it might not be the hard part, but already by, like, floor 30 or so, enemies start to be challenging enough. Like, not necessarily like, oh, you're going to wipe if you make this one mistake, but it's not this easy, as you're seeing right now, where I just run up to a mob and then look in their general direction and they die. I also just realized what Rillian said. It's a Kai stream. This is the perfect thing to watch instead of doing Pathfinder prep. Are you the game master? That'd be pretty funny. If I say no, can I stay longer? Oh, I wasn't going to say that you had to go. I was more going to say that's going to be a very interesting session. Right, everyone. So, for tonight's session, you start at a palace. Uh-oh. That's a very inconvenient frog trap. Yeah. You start at the entrance to a palace of, like, of death and decay. One might even call it a palace of the dead. Hey, maybe you should do that. We walk away. Oh man. Hey Yannick, hope you're doing well. Yeah, I agree. That could actually be pretty fun. Oh, the big old one shot. I didn't even need to kill this guy. That could be pretty fun. It has this like interesting sort of like, as a journey in a game, doing that has like a similar feel to like how like you're progressing through levels and things like that. Like it makes it very clear that you're leveling up, but in a different way, where you can see that every time you climb a floor, like, the story has progressed. Where did you come from? I was under these rocks. Nyah! Right next to the innovation trap you stepped in. Yeah, we walk away. That's the classic for oh hi. I don't think it's that common, but those are like the kind of stories you sometimes hear from like game masters or dungeon masters, what you want to call it, complaining that their players are not like that they're actively hindering the story or something to that effect. Because every time the game master has like made a specific kind of story, if the players just don't grab the hook, then like they're going out into no man's land. Right now they're in a more traditional MSQ kind of thing. Oh, nice. Oh, a sight. I might need that, given how I've already stepped in 2 traps. Sweet. Oh, look, there's a trap. I've probably stepped in that. Whiskey says, I don't know how accurate it is, but my DM gave us a really old school map from like 1st edition where every step could be a trap. Felt like Palace of the Dead. Oh, man. Well, the question there is if there is a pattern to the traps. Because that's the reason why I tend to, like, follow the edge of the room. Is that it isn't perfect. Like, there is somewhat a pattern to the traps in Palace of the Dead, but I don't know the pattern fully. I just know that the traps, you're less likely to step in one if you like walk up against the wall. I often don't walk up close enough to the wall, which is why I sometimes get hit anyway. But you know, if there's a pattern, you can figure it out. You can also choose not to. Just go, well, that's not what my character would do. As long as you don't say that's what my character would do and then you do something stupid. And that one is always fun. I'm just doing what my character would. Yeah, well, I mean, if you attack your party, then then we don't have a story. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is a pretty good point, Ridleyan. That on the one hand, you could go, shucks, they didn't grab the hook. Now I'll have to freestyle it because they didn't do it, and now this story I just have to save it for later when maybe they'll grab it. But you could also just go, okay, I was trying to make it interesting, but listen, guys, this is the story hook, and if you don't take it, then I don't have anything else. You're meant to do this. It's what my character would do. Flashback to the guy in my old TTRPG group who healed a child in front of the whole magic-hating village. That's weirdly familiar. It sounds weirdly familiar. Many years ago, I played in this extremely heavily homebrewed Warhammer Fantasy RPG. GM was nice, very good. It's very funny, also. I had a few friends in the group that were like, the thing is, the setting, as far as I was told, was The Witcher. I have never played The Witcher, so no idea, but there was a lot of room for homebrew, so, like, I didn't need to understand The Witcher. It was fine. But a key component of the story was that magic was outlawed. Straight up outlawed. I was playing a necromancer. And I actively made a big effort to hide that. Because the game master told me basically that, right? I knew that. There's this session where, like, we have a new guy in who's actually normally GMs himself. Like, he's supposedly a learned game master. Not for a Warhammer Fantasy though, but for, like, tabletop RPG. He was also told this thing with magic, and he had a very stacked character that he was allowed to have by the game master. Like, the character was actually, like, designed with the game master on board, but that was, like, what the character could do, not exactly its personality. We're trying to sneak into this camp by, like, to do some things. We're like in a gray area alliance with those people in that camp. In that we have the same enemy, but if they don't like us, we'll probably die. So anyway, Mr. Learned Game Master basically tells someone in the camp that he's a mage and he can do magic. Which effectively causes the guards to come to check, to talk with him, to have a little... Just, are you sure? Are you joking? Are you serious? Like, basically, the GM giving him, like, the out to go, nah, I was just kidding. And instead of just going with them, he casts magic immediately. His character died shortly after. The rest of the team survived. His defense... Well, it was what my character would do. Good. Well, I don't know what your character will do now. He's dead. Hey, Steve. Hope you're doing well. And that is a good tip. I'll try to follow it. Classic blunder, like trusting an Amatsu getting involved in a land war in Garlemald. I mean, if you threaten the life of said Namatsu hard enough, then you might be able to trust it. Emphasis on might. Our clever healer didn't think 2 seconds, just went into a building with a child and healed it. Since I actually ran one of the original Adventures of 1st edition Pathfinder to completion with a few of my online friends a while back. Oh, cool! I don't know a lot about Pathfinder. I went to one, like sort of like I think it was like an introductory session. It was okay, but I guess we just didn't have time. Like we didn't do any more than that with it. One time I, 100% homebrewed, Yannick says, I was playing an enslaved heir to the throne of some country. Wait, some ex-country? Like as in a country that no longer exists? Or did you just mean like some insert country here? I found at some point a... Uh-oh. It's focus time! I found at some point a strange shiny dagger in a mine I was working in. So I decided to shave myself to not be recognized and sneak out somehow. GM had me roll on the action of shaving. Oh. Natural one. Oh. Well, that's brutal. I don't know if it was me, who was like the GM, I would probably just have gone, you look like that you cut it really strange, you have like a scar or something. But it also depends on, like what kind of expectations the group has as a whole, right? Like if the group as a whole were okay with life being finicky, then you should have seen it coming. Ridley and says, would it please you to know that someone made a Final Fantasy hack of Pathfinder's 1st edition that includes the 14 jobs? That sounds nice. Hey, Nom Nom Nom. Hope you're doing well. Thank you, Yannick. And enjoy your day. There's actually a group on the Oh, whoops, just a second. On the Discord server for the channel, who sometimes run the Final Fantasy XIV tabletop RPG. I believe it's Melo who GMs it. I don't know how they do that, or if there's even an option to join, but that was just like the actual one. They usually use the voice chat on the Discord server for doing it. So like if you catch it when they do it, then oh man, this again. Hey Flip, hope you're doing well. And hey, you is that Jose or is it Jose? I'm not sure, but hope you're doing well as well. I haven't paid that much close attention to like their journey, but it sounds quite something else when they bring it up. Weak. You know what? I don't need a Lost for this. Yeah. Oh, this looks like it's going to take a little longer than I had anticipated. Cold feet? That's a weird spell. I cast cold feet. Now your feet are cold. What will you do? She's not doing a lot of damage. Okay, she's doing a little bit of damage. Excuse me. Equip socks? Yeah, exactly. Oh no, cold feet. Whatever will I do? I'll use my counter enchantment called Socks. Silly Edda. And blam! Hilbert using flash powder. Let me see. They also use one that I included the basic 14 spread stack stuff with some of the bigger problem enemies. My party understood them pretty well on first exposure. Oh, nice. And I agree with that, Nom Nom Nom. I wonder if that is actually... Like, that's the thing, is that it's like lore implications. Because the story goes that, well, the Machinist soul crystal is empty when we get it. Which means that, like, aside from, like, basic gun shooting ability that you might, like, learn initially when picking up the job, we could assume that all the insanity that the player character decides to do with it is just going, well, it would be cool if you could do a flip while shooting. Woolly socks, OGCD. It is quite something else how crazy the attacks the Machinist is, considering that supposedly it is just something you just made up on the spot. Like, think about it for a second. At level 52, a giant multi-tool cannon thingy appears in your pocket. The multi-tool, by the way, is bigger than you for a lot of characters. But somehow it's there. Level 58. Well, actually, 52 and 50. You actually get those from a job quest, so there is the possibility that you're just handed it. But at level 82, a shotgun materializes in your pants somehow. And you just bring up immediately. Like, in the middle of your Tower of Zod run, you're just like, oh, by the way, guys, I actually had this shotgun all along. Don't ask about it. Just don't worry about it. I just have it. Haha! You're also affected. Some might indeed have had the shotgun all along. Yeah, true. But it is a little bit funny how you just go, oh wait, I could use it. Tancred motioning to all the leftover gunblades of the Guardian soldiers we killed. Oh yeah. I could use one of these. I'd like to think that Warrior of Light is just buying stuff off the black market. You see, that's also a good one, Philippe. When did we make that agreement with that frog? Like, when did we come up with that? Silly music, silly music. Strength. Yoink. It's the same when you level up to 96. You use chainsaw and then you just go, wait. Has there always been a second chainsaw on this? So that I could find an extra one? Huh. I should probably fire that. You have learned Excavator. The. You know, I didn't need it. But I feel like it was absolutely worth it. Did you see that? that mimic was not going to go down quietly. Haha! As my final trick, I'm not actually a mimic, or I'm not actually a treasure. I'm a bomb. Hey, Cyanide. Hope you're doing well. And thank you, Savik Faye. The history books are gonna be like, and then the Warrior of Light, our glorious champion, equipped twin Gatling guns and missile pods. Oh yeah, that is again, you just level up out in the middle of nowhere and you just go, oh yeah, I just remembered. I packed these from home. You pack what? Why do you have like 2 Gatling guns and that, all of that? Like, how? How did you have all that? And also, if you had all that, why didn't you use them earlier? Well, I wasn't level 100. Like, do you think I'm crazy? The science just looking at you like you're a lunatic. I am finding a lot of mines. Ow. Is the Warrior of Light not a basket case at this point? Wow! This floor sucks. I'm not a fan. This floor's cursed. This floor's straight up cursed. The mob dropped a chest. That was another mimic. And the mimic dropped another mimic. What is happening? Are you done? So there was a treasure that was actually a mimic. And I killed a mob right next to it. That mob dropped a treasure, which was a mimic. And that mimic dropped a treasure that was also a mimic. And earlier in the room, there was also a mimic. Hey, Kieran and Tom. Hope you're doing well. Palace of the Dead is a mimic. Just one big mimic. It's clearly edged on the barrels. Only 100 and above may use these. Oh, man. Hey, Viek. Hope you're doing well. I'm gonna need this. I'm just saying, the last floor had like 4 mimics in total. One of the mimics also held a bomb inside it. And I also stepped on at least 1 explosive trap. All on the previous floor. Was this a rage? Yes. Simply use Dynamis. What do you mean? When you say basket case, Ridlian, do you mean something else? I feel like it can also be used as a descriptive term for some people. I think I'm not 100% sure. What do you mean? Is that a shotgun in your pocket? Yeah. Afflicted by multiple psychological conditions at once. Oh! Yes, probably. Yeah, the Warrior of Light is probably definitely that. They're also somewhat like semi-possessed by multiple things. Kind of. Strength. Yup. End expansion final boss. Warrior of Light goes to therapy. When you finally do, when the story is finally over, one day, your character just wakes up in a hospital. You've just been like Final Fantasy XIV was actually all a dream. All of it. What are you talking about, cat girls? In Limsa? What's that? The real plot twist there being that the world you actually wake up in is even crazier. No. We're not talking like, what do you mean, catgirls? That's insane. Let's go to hurdy-gurdy land and see the dog boys instead. Yes, that's perfectly normal. I don't know what you're on about with catgirls, man. That's silly talk. Lizards? The real twist on the "it was all a dream" trope. Where you wake up in a crazier world than the dream was. You do not understand how many dog boys would be pet. All of them. I'm pretty sure the answer is all of them. Hey Marcus, hope you're doing well. Warrior of Light time travels to Allagan era. If that's the case, I'd rather have the cat girls to put me back in the coma. Wait, so the state run by the church was also a dream? No, that's a real thing. Yeah, Ishgard also exists in this world. Bunny girls? What are you talking about? We have goat girls. Meh. "105% of the dog boys would be pet." Yep. Exactly. We have the same Ishgard. The only difference is that the Warrior of Light didn't pass through yet. But that would be funny. It wouldn't surprise me if that has already been done, but like, I'm just saying the "it was all a dream" is a trope for a reason. Aha, we'll hide the horde right next to this box that contains exactly the item required to find it. Genius. Genius strat. Scientific Faye, check Cyanide's message. Slightly further up. We're talking about an alternative, basically a twist on the "it was all a dream" trope, where it was indeed all a dream, except the world you wake up to is crazier. It's funnier without context. Well. Hey, Lord Midichlorian. Hope you're doing well. And it's not a good trope, because it's typically the way it can end up feeling is that it's basically a really, really effective way of making the entire story meaningless. Like, if you get the "but it was all a dream," then it kind of just gives the implication that, oh yeah, nothing in the story mattered. Because it was all a dream. It's a very, very easy trick to just back out of something you don't think actually should have been in the story after all. Just make it all not count. Doink. Exactly, Ceres. Exactly. It's just good that you paid attention to all this stuff we told you. It's all meaningless. It wrapped up. Hope you're doing well. Wink. Last floor, the horde was right next to the box with more intuition in it. On this floor, not so, but the horde is here as well. Oh, nice, Jim. I'm sure you'll get ahead of me because I'm Not very efficient at this. But good luck on your journey. Steel. And then it turns out the actual dream was it was a dream all along. If you wake up from a Final Fantasy XIV if you wake up and Final Fantasy XIV is a dream, you'd at least have a good plan for an MMO game. Oh yeah. If you woke up one day and Final Fantasy XIV was a dream all along, then you would at least have the advantage that, well, first of all, you would have a good idea for a game people probably would enjoy, but you would also know all the things, like all of the pitfalls. You would probably be able to make a better game. Like, when you really think about it, you could skip the 1.0 era. Alternatively, you could have 1.0 be good. You'd need the resources, though. Definitely. Definitely. At least I know not to cast Cure 1. Wow. Well, you did get something out of it. Biggest change? Kaiten returns. Jim says, I don't know, I feel like 1.0 happening was actually one of the things that has made 14 so special. That is absolutely true. There's probably a good chance that if Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn, like, had been 1.0, like, they had just, quote-unquote, gotten it right from the first, then there's probably a lot of other things that wouldn't have been as wild. Although... like, I wasn't there, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't until, like, Stormblood or even Shadowbringers before Final Fantasy XIV, like, really started to get a lot of traction. I might be wrong on that. Like, Heavensward was critically acclaimed, as we all know. So, there's that. So it could also be Heavensward when it really started to get traction. Like, really, really. And if it took a lot of time, then it means that A Realm Reborn could have released, and then they still needed to get the traction. JGP wouldn't have been here if 1.0 had succeeded. That's true. Well, he wouldn't have been on that project, at least. The Shadowbringers absolutely popped off. I feel like Endwalker is in a weird position if we were to compare that to anything, because that one, I would say, had an advantage of the competition floundering at that specific moment. Like, I'm not saying that that should detract from Endwalker, I'm just saying that it might be unfair to compare it while ignoring that fact. Because it probably helped. Maybe I have this idea, this NPC idea for a mentor type that is either some kind of draconic creature or a creature that's like waist high to the party. It would probably work better as a relatively short draconic creature. Like, not like super tall, like reasonably short by like a normal person standards. It would probably be a female character, and I would recommend pink clothing. Although that might be a little much. Depends on how possible it is to have that kind of color in a story. You could, of course, also just not mention the color of the clothing if it's not important to the story. The mentor could have like an assistant that is like a really, really short character. that constantly gets distracted, especially by candy. Did you get a lot of good loot, FFXIV? Steve says it would have been interesting to see what games Yoshi P would have made if not working on Final Fantasy XIV. Yoshi P also worked on 16. So, yeah, that is an interesting question. It's like a comedy duo. Yeah. Absolutely. It's a lot of gil. I mean, that could also be a win. I understand that you and Sip have a tendency to always be in this state of not having very much money. And is in Fantasia, is in 2 other unannounced projects. Oh, wow. That's a lot. Exactly, Whiskey. It probably helped a lot that WoW was in a weird state at the time. And the big brain move, Safik, if you're really, really lazy, but want some money, is if you have unlocked Mentor Roulette, just do Mentor Roulette as the job in need. I believe it gives like 7k for the adventure in need. That was like here! Wow! But I think it's like 7k for the adventure in need. So if you can, exactly, if you can land those skill tests, right? Then it's easy 7k. Like I would say if you could chain land under the armor, like that's like 7k a minute. I would say that's decently good money. Jokes on you, 20 rounds of Puppets Bunker. I have, like, the reason why I'm suggesting Adventure in Need is partly because, well, Adventure in Need is the one that, you know, gets the money, but Adventure in Need also means that you're more likely to land in content where players are needed of that role, and tanks and healers, in my experience, are way more likely to be needed in like daily dungeons and things like that. Why are you AoEing the other half of the room, buddy? Nice one, Jim. Yeah, we died on floor 180 XO to 0, and then I decided to just do a different job for some variety. And we voted a bit on like the on a few options, and Machinist won. Palace of the Dead to floor 200 is not even close to as hard as Solo's Epic Fae. Like, I actually recall we back when there was a Mock Tome event where you had to clear, I think it was floor 50? Or was it 100? I ran it with a few friends. And we did it in one sitting. In one stream. It is on the channel. Speaking of the frame drop problems we had yesterday and also Thursday, one of the friends that I was running with, Thesa, or Greensville, was also co-streaming it. And I think he had a problem with his connection, so he had like 80 or 90% frame drops. That's not great. It was fine on my end. Is this a necromancer attempt? Technically it is a necromancer attempt because I don't have the title. And yeah, we wiped exactly to Behemoth. I made the mistake of using my last strength and steel on like floor 178 because I had a feeling that that was the only thing that could carry me to the boss room. Unfortunately, that meant that my strength and steel ran out in the middle of the boss fight, which made it very hard. I got him to like 7%, I think. But because I didn't have the proper setup, I couldn't make it past the Ecliptic Meteor. Good luck, Zeros! Are you doing some synced raiding? I don't think you can do the 15% push without strength. Given how insanely strong Pictomancer is, I think it might be possible if you had the vulnerability set up instead. But I had neither. Minimum item level, no echo, Alexander Savage. Oh, good luck. That is a good idea, Midichlorian. That way you don't, like, exactly, if you, like, while you're, like, ready to roll and excited to go, if it goes wrong, you don't fall too far back. I usually just do it in one sitting because, like, here's the thing. I've said this before on other streams, but I don't think I would be able to focus on doing a Palace of the Dead run just alone, just sitting for myself. And I think it's a lot more entertaining to watch one full run, or like one connected run at least. So it's not like, oh, finally we get to the interesting part, and then I restart to get a second save. You know what I mean? Like, that wouldn't be super fun. Imagine combining deep dungeons with field operations. A deep dungeon section would be like hard parts of Palace of the Dead, kind of like gatekeeping dungeon between larger zones where you can meet up with other players. Oh, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. It reminds... it makes me think a little bit of Guild Wars 1. In that game, you could see other players when you were in town. And basically the open world part of the game, for the most part, was designed with the expectation that you were coming with a team. To the extent that the game has NPCs that you can bring that are actually reasonably smart. Like, actually decently good NPCs to bring if you can't get players. But I believe you could always bring NPCs, which meant that if you only had one friend to bring, you could fill the rest of the team with NPCs. But that also meant that traveling between cities in the game, in a way, was a little bit like going in a dungeon, because once you were in there, that was your team. And to your question, FFXIV, what is next hardest part after 180? I would probably... I think I've heard that the floors from 181 to 190 are really, really hard. But there's, of course, also a boss at 190. But I'm pretty sure that one is a little different. On the, like, DPS check department, it has a mechanic that you have to do, right? Like, rather than just burst it down, it's more about doing the mechanic right. Will a run ever die exclusively to a trap? Yes. Absolutely. It didn't get instantly killed because it was stuck in the wall. So it couldn't get pushed. Weird. What? But to clarify on that, FFXIV, one of the possible traps in a deep dungeon is the luring trap, which is also thank you Necrofits, thank you. A luring trap has it basically summons 3 monsters from the current floor, I believe. And when you get to the higher floors, one enemy from the floor is already a challenge. And accidentally pulling a second mob is often a disaster. If you're not ready for it. Like, stepping in a luring trap is like... It steals some of your resources, effectively speaking, but you have to use something. And my first attempt on Necromancer title, which was back in Endwalker and was also streamed on this channel, I played Summoner, and my run died somewhere, I think around floor 178 or so, to an incredibly hilarious sequence of me going, like a few floors prior, I haven't stepped in any traps this entire set, and I had gone for like 30 floors by then. That's amazing! Then I stepped in a luring trap, and then like 2 minutes later I stepped in a luring trap, and then like 2 minutes later I stepped in a luring trap, and then I was like, if I step in another luring trap, I think it's over, because I was out of racing, I was out of witching, my steel and strength was running out, and then the game went, you know what would be really funny right now though? And then I stepped in a luring trap. Like, it was amazingly comedic timing, but also very sad. On Machinist, what you do is bind one heavy, another, and kite the third on sprint. Oh, that is a good idea. I'll try to remember that. But yeah, it was so perfect that, like, the run was going decently well, and then, like, 10-20 minutes later, it was just over. And that was exactly thanks to traps. And, like, in a weird technicality kind of way, that luring trap was a trap that killed the run on its own. Even though, like, the way it did it was that it had, like, a bunch of other traps wearing me down leading up to it. Yeah, that was what I had thought, Yannick, that sometimes it can be hard to know which mobs can be crowd controlled. There's also something we talked about when it was mentioned that Red Mage is really good, because you can dual cast Sleep, which is incredibly good, but on high enough floors, wasting your dual cast on Sleep and then the mob goes immune, that is not good. How strict is the DPS requirement of the high floors to avoid the harden rage, I mean, or the instance timer? That's hard to say, because each floor is a little random. But ultimately, on average, you have 6 minutes per floor, right? But I would say Behemoth takes, like, around that time easily. So you also need time to actually, you know, enter the floor, do what you need to do, and so on. So the prior floors have to take less than 6 minutes each. But that is like I would say an okay starting point to go. Like, if if you divide your remaining time by the remaining floors, you hopefully have 6 minutes left per floor. Otherwise, you're definitely behind. Hey, that's in. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, because it is sort of RNG, it isn't entirely up to skill alone whether you win or lose. Although, for a second there I thought I had lost connection when I saw that my drill didn't do anything. It just missed. Yeah, exactly. Being skilled at deep dungeons means that you know how to make the most of the luck you're given, which means that you're more likely to get further, even in an unlucky run. Yeah, Vivek, the trick there is that tanks, way more than any other job, would and almost should be abusing traps for their advantage. Notably, explosive traps also hurt the enemies. Which means that if you can, like, round up a bunch of enemies and then step in a luring trap, or not luring trap, explosive trap, then you can basically cleave them for 80% of their HP in an instant. And the explosive traps only like do current HP to you, so you don't just randomly die from stepping in a trap without having full HP. The silver chest explosives, though, do max HP as far as I've heard, so make sure you're healthy before you open a silver chest. But yes, tanks pretty much have to mess around with traps to compensate. I think healers will too, just by virtue of, well, it's a healer. Yeah, also that's in. That chest could be a mimic. Can gold chests explode? I don't think I've ever seen one explode. But they can be mimics. Yeah, exactly, yeah, just homegang it. That's exactly what happens, is that, like, you go, oh, you find an explosive trap. So you, like, because you have sight or something. So you round up mobs, run into the trap with homegang, and then you just finish up the rest. Very victorious music. Yeah, I thought as much, Caroline. That's what I've seen as well, but, like, yeah, either way, the advice of don't open a chest without being healthy is pretty reasonable, just in general. Yeah, that's also a thing you can do, is that silver chests can be explosives, so you could round up, like, a few mobs. Like, if you have a backup solution, like, you have a witching to fix it, but if you have a silver chest or two, you could, like, run the mobs over to that, see if that one explodes. Like, it's an option. You could try. But, I would never be good at at running... Oh, whoops. Drill wasn't ready. Wah, wah. I would never be good at running as tank, because I would not feel very compelled to run into a trap. I'm not that kind of risk-taker guy. Ah, yeah. You could also sleep enemies and explode a mine as a caster. Indeed. This might sound like an insane question, but does the explosion from the trap wake them up? Libel. And the reason why I'm asking that is because there are things in the game that, like, there is damage in the game that does not wake up sleeping enemies. Notably, dot ticks. And, like, I mean... I believe it does not. Well, there you go. Oh, that's pretty funny. They're just sleeping. And just explosion, disintegrating nearly all of them. Like, what was that? Ah, must have been the wind. Definitely, it was the wind. Da da da. Oh, hi. Oh, boy. What does the foregone gleam do? Does it petrify? Oh, boy. It's a silver chest. Now we have to check. 2 out of 2. 2 out of 2. I've had a mimic. It turned out to be a silver chest. It's a bomb. Oh, I know, Caroline. If you were here earlier, there was a moment where I had a mimic that dropped a silver chest that exploded. Then, on the same floor, I had a mimic that had a mimic inside of it. And inside of that, I can't remember if there was another bomb or if it was just like a whatever item. But right next to that original chest was a mob, and that mob dropped a chest, which was also a mimic. Like... if you needed proof that almost anything is possible with the chests, then there you go. And the thing that I was asking about is the foregone gleam. That's the gaze mechanic from these, the Diplocaulus. And I don't know what it does, because I respect it very much when I see it. Yes, I do, Whiskey. Like, before I got into Final Fantasy XIV, I played World of Warcraft for like 15 years. And in that game, we don't call it standard controls, we just call it controls. So it feels weird to play on Legacy. This is really silly. Hey, Connor. Hope you're doing well. It petrifies. Okay, thank you. Then I do feel like I'm giving it the appropriate amount of respect. That is true, Viek. I'm sort of like cycling through the chests mainly because, ooh, steel and strength. I should probably have saved that, because I don't need it on this floor. No, wait, I had 3. I thought I had 2. In that case, whatever. Yeah, in a way, kinda. We're just, like, working our way through. And then we'll see if I actually beat floor 200 on a run one day. It paralyzes. I'm expecting that it also does damage. There's still decent reason to respect it. I just realized that its random tank busters called Fang's End. Kill a mimic that spawns another mimic. My descendants are honor-bound to avenge me. You will never be safe again. Have you said why you picked Machinist? We did a poll on the last Palace of the Dead stream. That was the reason. But I'm pretty sure that poll was preempted by people going, oh yeah, Machinist is crazy good for this. And Emir also sent like a pink super chat saying to pick Machinist. So you could argue that the deck was stacked. But it was a close one. I'm pretty sure that I think Reaper was a really close second. Hey Ardell, hope you're doing well. Pictomancer from my previous run is quite strange. Because I wonder why is Machinist preferred in Palace of the Dead. They have very good burst, they have an interrupt, they have a slow, a snare, they have peloton, they have full ranged physical mobility. If you take any other good job in Palace of the Dead and compare them to Machinist, what makes Machinist so good is usually what the other job does not have. For example, if you compared Pictomancer to Machinist, Pictomancer does not have fully free mobility. Pictomancer does not have an interrupt. Pictomancer does not have a slow. It has a sleep. But and it doesn't have a heal, which Machinist also has, by the way. Like, it's a lot of habits rather than the have-nots. That's what really sells Machinist. That it just has a lot of goodness, and the reason why it's that and not the other ranged physical jobs is because Machinist then, on top of that, has no rate buffs, so its damage is entirely concentrated in its own ability to do damage. So yeah, it is simply a case of a lot of things that normally doesn't matter in the game might be really helpful in Palace of the Dead, and Machinist has loads of that. But yeah, what I was going to say with the fact that Pictomancers are... Did I kill everything on the floor and the door isn't open? Weird. But what makes Pictomancer weird is exactly that. It doesn't have very much utility. Like, if you see a Mimic, like, if you spawn a Mimic for any reason, your only out as a Pictomancer is kill it first. Because you can't interrupt Infatuation. Like, if you can't kill it in time, it just means you meet a Mimic, that means you get the pox. And there's nothing you can do about it. Machinist can interrupt it. Yeah, exactly, Necrophits. Precisely. The Moogle Treasure Trove, I believe, is coming on Tuesday? And I think there's also a Halloween event. Is that coming on Friday? Something like that? Pox is not that much of a big deal. How much is it actually that Pox reduces your damage output? How much is it? Because I believe Pox also stops your passive health regen and makes you take damage slowly over time. So it sort of puts like a slow consumption of your sustaining potions, which of course also means that like you're effectively taking slightly more damage in combat as a result of passively just taking more. But yeah, 10% is something you can manage, definitely. And that's also true, Caroline. It's like the fact that it is eating your sustaining potions is more like a mild inconvenience, because hopefully you have plenty of potions anyway. To me, it's more the fact that, and this was something that I ran into as Pictomancer, is as Pictomancer doesn't have any self-healing of its own. If you're in a position where your passive regen doesn't work, then you only have sustaining potions to keep you alive. And if sustaining potions is already what makes you able to kill a mob in the first place, hypothetically, well then Pox is exactly too much. But it is a lot less frightening. Than it should be a lot less frightening. Because it's just 10%. What I usually do with the Moogle Treasure Trove is that when the event starts, thereabouts, I take a look at the entire menu of things you can buy, and I check what items I don't have. And then, like, I write down how many tomestones I need. Well, you know, Mock tomes I need to get all of that. And then I try to make sure that I'm, like, getting a little bit every day. Because what can often really sour Moogle Treasure Trove is if you try to do it all in a day. It is less of a problem nowadays because, well, you know, there are the weekly tasks and things like that. So there is an advantage to not doing everything in the first week. But if you actually plan it out, so you can like gradually get it done over the event itself, then it might feel a little less daunting. I did like a 24-hour streak last time on the last day. Do not recommend. Ooh. That's not good. Yeah, also that necrofits. I think I actually mentioned exactly that because in the previous Mock Tome event, I actually put out a guide, like a quick guide on how you could farm tomestones, just in general. And one tip that I mentioned, which admittedly was the way that I got the most of my mock tomes, was that so some of you know that if I'm like writing a manuscript or just like doing stuff that is not actually in Final Fantasy XIV but is related to making a video or something, I will often just sit under the tree in Limsa Lominsa, which is why you can find me there. It's like I'm just placing myself somewhere obvious in case you want to talk with me. But in the Mock Tome event, I specifically just parked myself in the gold saucer. And then every time an event started, I just quickly did that and then back to work again. Very effective. Also, yeah, thank you, Adil. Thank you. It does seem to help to like streams while they're live. I'm not entirely sure how it works with the algorithm and stuff, but it does seem to help, so it is very much appreciated. Thank you. But yeah, just if you don't want to power grind too hard, but you are like, see, the thing is, not everyone does this, but if you have a tendency to just hang around in game while you're doing some stuff, maybe you're just riding with friends, a really effective way to make the most of your time while farming mock tomes is just to park yourself in the gold saucer. Most of the time, you'll get multiple mock tomes for like a few minutes of work. It's oh boy. In terms of like work per minute, or tomes per minute, it's extremely effective. Oh, that mob is apparently immune to slow. Oh boy. How can we farm mock tomes while AFKing in Limsa? That gives mock tomes, right? Has to. If only it did. A luring trap. Me. Oh yeah, there's the party room. I just realized that was what you were talking about. Party room ahead. Any specific spots in the gold saucer? No. What you do is you just place yourself in the gold saucer every... I think it's every 20 minutes. I believe it's every 20 minutes. A gate will happen, which can be like leap of faith. Everywhere the wind blows. The slice is right. Like all those kind of things. You just participate. And just do your best. Like something like the slice is right. Even if you fail it. Like if you just place yourself somewhere... I think it's actually even better with anywhere the wind blows, because that one you're not allowed to move once the event is underway. So if you know where you want to stand, you just place yourself there. Like you just go over, engage the event, place yourself where you want to stand, and then you can just like, I don't know, go to the bathroom. You just like do whatever. And when you're back, you will have acquired mock tomes. A random amount of them, you know, in a way, but you will get some. And yeah, there are gate clerks around the place that can just teleport you to the next thing. You know, it would be diabolical mock tomes for various jumping puzzles. That would be quite something. I'm pretty sure it's in any way the wind blows, it actually locks you in place until it is finished. It is, the slice is right where you can run whenever you want, I'm pretty sure. Or can you actually move between the snorts? Oh, you might be right on that, midichlorian, because you said, but there's no point in moving really since it's pure randomness. That tracks. I learned from what other people said that there are a few spots that are very, very favored that people have discovered that seems to be less likely to be hit. And once I started using that spot, my score on anywhere the wind blows, or any way the wind blows, increased dramatically. What's up, Whiskey? The one that I've seen, Necrophytes, is like, it's like on a very specific little like icon on the floor that people just stand on. But the good news there, Whiskey, is that a lot of the gates have like a like a lot of them are something where you can relatively consistently ensure that you get a decent score. Like the one where you, like the gunning one where you fly in an airplane. That one, like if you pay attention, you can get full points every time. I see, Boat. That is an interesting way to do it as well. Yep, Air Force One, exactly. But the interesting thing is that if you want to do even more than that, you can always do other things that give you mock tomes in between gates, because it is 20 minutes. Some of them you will finish in under 1 minute, other times you'll have spent like 3 or 4 minutes before you're done. That might dictate a little bit what you can do in between. Correct, Girahin. You will have already Air Force One. Vince's Air Force 1 is easy. Leap of Faith depends on the hour. I will say Sylph Step is the harder one of Leap of Faith. But I'm actually pretty... I'm usually pretty good at all of them. On all of the Leap of Faith ones. This is annoying. I want to open this. But if it's a Mimic, I don't want to be pacified. But yeah, the only thing you could do in between gates is you could, like some duties give, a lot of duties give mock tomes. If you can find a duty that takes under like 15 minutes, you can just do that one. I am pacified, I must run laps. Indeed. I must run. Okay. There's 100% a way to read slice. But there is exactly one thing that is RNG. Like, all of the bamboo falls in a predictable pattern, and you can move both before and after the cut and during the bamboo falling. The only thing in Slice's right that is entirely random is when he brings out his dog. There, it basically forces you to choose a third, like a slice of the arena to stand on, and there's a 33% chance that you get extra MGP, a 33% chance you get nothing, and a 33% chance that you lose immediately. Essentially. Yep, thank you, Yannick. I do remember that. The thing is, like, a long time ago I have, like, poured over such a document. I just can't remember those things. And some of the mobs, like, if the thing they do isn't particularly important, then there's a much lower chance that I know. Or remember. Like, for example, how, like, last time... Uh-oh. Ow. Like, last time... I basically took one look at the answer and was like, I know those are dangerous. I don't want to fight them ever. Because I knew that. But then a lot of other mobs I had no idea about. Sorry. Yeah, thank you, Yannick. That is true. You know what's funny about that, Necrophits? That is pretty much the same problem as proccing a Savage boss. The part of the fight you haven't seen a lot of times yet, you likely have very little practice with, so you're not entirely sure how to do it. You only get past the RNG phase of Slice's Right 2/3 of the time, on average. Which means you only get to practice that part 2/3 of the time. So it makes sense that you would have a harder time with it. Something you can sometimes do to offset your lack of knowledge about it is... Whoops, I managed to interrupt randomly there. Is that some of the other players might be able to guide you. You can follow around those that seem to know what they're doing. And that might help. And that might give you an idea of where you need to go. But it is effectively the same. Now, that's also why I sometimes liken proccing on a hard fight to like a platformer where there's like this really hard part, but the checkpoint is like 5 minutes back, so you have to like work your way through all this other platforming to get back to the part you're having trouble with. It's the same idea. And with the Slices Right, it is even more brutal because you get one try. And then that's it until Slices Right comes back again. And it might not come back for the next hour. Alright, Rillian, there is a link to the Discord on the YouTube channel. Like, if you just go to the channel and click the links button up there at the top, it should be there. You can also find in the description of basically all of my videos and all of my streams. So if you're having trouble finding it, you know where to look. Almost anywhere on the channel. Enjoy your session. It is pretty funny, that, Necrofits, because that's also how I learned that random spot for Any Way the Wind Blows. Was that I started to see others do that, and then a friend of mine, I think it was Gazel, highlighted, was like, oh yeah, that spot specifically. And it didn't work the first time, but my first try with that spot, I got further than I ever had before, so, you know. The difference was that before I didn't make a choice, I just chose something random. And it turned out that deliberately choosing a specific spot was better than choosing randomly. Which is at least an improvement. Gudana. Gudana. Oh, right. I should have been out on the edge. Whoops. It's probably fine. Okay, not that much out on the edge. Charybdis. It's Gudana because unlike Floor 180 you have a good time. At least these behemoths have names. Oh, wow. That's a long cast time. Yeah, exactly, Vince and Necrofits. That's exactly also the reason why that like specific spot I was talking about matters, is precisely because it probably places itself right in like in a sweet spot where Typhon has to land somewhere rather specific to hit you at all. It fires random kitchen utensils. Oh, that would be amazing. It would have been funnier if they had made Heat Blast upgrade into something other than Blazing Shot. Like, just consider it for a moment. Hear me out, because Checkmate and Double Check is basically the machine is just throwing stuff at the enemy, like just throwing robots. Exactly like the random stuff, go! But what if they had made it so that checkmate, double check, and the things replace blazing shot all were that? Like, all of them were just you throwing random stuff at the enemy. So, like, your character's actually just doing, like, the... just throwing things. Okay. Lives is, and because randomness is cruel, Typhon always goes right next to me and does the circle AoE. You know, I'm pretty sure, so I have a video on the channel that is like an intro to the Gold Saucer. Which also sort of like almost doubles as like a tourist's guide to the Gold Saucer. Where I tried pretty much everything there. Just tested them and gave some like input on it. And evaluated how good it was, for example, for farming MGP. And I'm pretty sure both for the slices right and Any Way the Wind Blows, I got hit immediately. Like in both cases. It really complemented the fact that I had brought Sip with me for most of the attractions. And specifically when we, did a Chocobo race, I landed dead last and he got first place. So, they had a more pressing appointment. And the moth? It wanted to find me on the next floor. Maybe that could also be a weird solution to a problem with Machinist, in the way of a nom 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 suggestion. Is a relatively common problem with... Wow, I missed that by a hair. A relatively common problem with Machinist is that the job is almost unplayable for a lot of players if they have latency. Like slightly more than normal amounts of latency. And then you can't anymore. What they could do is maybe have an alternative to Blazing Shot that, like, in overall damage is maybe slightly weaker than Blazing Shot and checks. But it just requires you to press that button. Like, it could even be like, oh yeah, but it actually spends the checks and double checks. So, like, you can't go use it to, like, stockpile extra burst or something. Or maybe you could. I don't even know if it matters. But that could be a way to make it so that players that can't do those weaves because of their connection had a chance. Hey Bimo, hope you're doing well. And hey Nori, hope you're doing well as well. The thing is, Necrophits, what makes Machinist impossible on latency is not about double weaving. It's actually about single weaving. Because when you use Blazing Shot, that attack only has a GCD of 1.5. And you need to, like, to play Machinist optimally, you have to single weave after every Blazing Shot. Every Blazing Shot. And I'm actually not entirely sure exactly how much it is, but the more I've heard about it, the more people have tested on it, it seems like, on average, before latency, the animation lock for most actions is like 0.6 plus a bit, which means that the assumption that is about 0.625 is before latency, not after. Something like that. Which means that you can't actually, like, if that's true, and and if that applies to blazing shots specifically in that specific way, then you cannot single weave during hypercharge as a machinist if your latency is above like 60 or 70 or so. Which is absurd. And by the way, is the same problem for Reaper. With the Lemure slice. And it is almost as bad with Viper. Almost as bad. Because their generations during the reawaken burst have a GCD of... Well, someone is apparently choosing to drill up a new painting somewhere in the building. Oh boy. Didn't see you. Ow. But yeah, because the generation, the 1, 2, 3, 4 generations on Viper has like a GCD after the speed bonus of like 1.8, I think. It's really close to being the exact same problem. Interesting time to work in your apartment. But sure, why not? How immersive. The drilling. Now you can feel the drill. The sound of a real drill. It wouldn't... Oh, I already had one, I think. Whoops. And yeah, exactly, Necrofits. It's also the same reason why it feels really bad as a Reaper. Like, that's the saddest part, is that Reaper is so weird because its general rotation is so slow and so barren of OGCDs that it would be the perfect melee DPS for someone with a bad connection. Because nothing is happening. Like, it's just mega slow. And then you use Enshroud, and suddenly everything is flipped on its head. Three flights on one floor. Nor is this the weaving issue could just be fixed by reducing or removing the animation lock. I'm reasonably sure that there's some part of the animation lock that is there for a good reason. That it is definitely not optimal the way we have it right now. But here's an interesting counterpoint to that, Nori. Let's say that the animation lock was half a second, like flat. Half a second and then, I don't know, 2 times your latency, right? Instead of basically a fourth of the base GCD. If it was just half a second, then it would be relatively feasible to triple weave on a latency less than 60. And that would lead optimal rotations to involve triple weaving. Just like that. Like, that's the thing, is that optimizing rotations is about what is relatively feasible. The reason why we don't triple weave is because it is so impossible to do for like nearly all of the player base that it is basically considered possibly cheating if you can do it. Surely they could just remove it for blazing shot specifically. They could probably reduce it for blazing shot specifically. I'm pretty sure Thunderclap has a shorter animation lock. I think Slither has as well, so I'm pretty sure they have the ability to do that, yes. The question is what is enough and what is too much. Isn't Flamethrower only optimal on 6 or more enemies? Flamethrower is actually never optimal. Basically, by the time, like when you learn Flamethrower, Flamethrower does more potency per second than the other AoE options. Because it does 80 potency per second, which is 200 potency per GCD. But at that point, you don't have Scattergun yet. But Flamethrower has 2/3 the range, or radius, of spread shot and auto crossbow. Which means that if you just, like turret up and use Flamethrower, there's a really, really high chance that you're not actually hitting all of the mobs in the pack. Which means that while you're doing more DPS to the mobs you're hitting, you're not hitting everything, and you're only doing slightly more damage when it really comes to it, which means that there's a really, really high chance that spread shot would have done more damage by hitting everything. Once you get Scattergun, the average potency, or well, I believe the average potency of or potency per second between Scattergun and auto crossbow is even closer to Flamethrower. It's not quite there yet, but again, the range thing is a problem. And when you get to, I think it's level 94, auto crossbow and Scattergun reaches 160 potency. In a 20-second window, you can cast 5 Scatterguns and then 5 auto crossbows with the heat you generated from the Scatterguns, which averages 160 potency per 2 seconds, which is the same as 80 potency per second, which is exactly the potency of Flamethrower, which means that the only time where Flamethrower is actually good is if you're out of heat gauge, the fight is rounding up to end, it's an AoE fight, and the potential heat you generate from Scattergun cannot be used for a future fight. Which means that Flamethrower ultimately is only good if the fight, if it's a duty that ends on an AoE fight. Which is, I don't think that is a thing. Not after level 70. And the reason why it has to be one where the heat you generate from Scattergun can't be used later is because Flamethrower being as good as Scattergun and auto crossbow is completely meaningless if Scattergun can generate resources to use auto crossbow later, because again, Flamethrower is more limited because you can't turn, the range is shorter. Like, it's better to just use auto crossbow and Scattergun. Like, Flamethrower looks like someone overlooked something. When you look at the potencies, it looks like someone forgot. It's goated when you are silenced. There it's actually pretty good because it's an ability that functions as a weapon skill. But that is a really specific case, isn't it? How often do you get pacified in non-deep dungeons? Hey Fox, hope you're doing well. I think a lot of people forgot that flamethrower exists. In a boss fight situation, it is such a niche thing that it hardly ever comes up. And in a dungeon, other options are just better. Most of the time. It's just an emote. You see, that's actually the funny thing. People would probably be mad if they removed flamethrower. Understandably so. I'm more of a fan of them fixing flamethrower. But I don't think they can fix flamethrower without reworking it. Or at least changing it somewhat drastically. How else do I cleanse limbs of all the sin? All the cat girls! Fire! It is also telling in an interesting way that aside from flamethrower and passage of arms, the only job that has those like channeled actions, like that do something every second like that, is Blue Mage. Like, it's basically a gimmick that is known to... Oh, I should not have used reassemble there. It's a gimmick that is known for being present on Blue Mage that Machinist just happens to have on a random button. This is not to mention the lost battery gen. If you try to flamethrower mob packs in dungeons, as Machinist mainly makes me feel so empty, like it's basically an emote. Well, in fairness, your AoE combo as Machinist doesn't generate any battery gauge. So at least you're not losing out on that, I guess. Oh yeah, it's also true. Collective unconscious on Astrologian is also there. That's true. You're right, Norris. That is another one. And I guess you could say Dancer's improvisation is also there, but I think the key difference is that collective unconscious and improvisation, and to some degree passage of arms, are actions that are frequently tapped. Like, they're not channeled, they're just weaved and then cancelled automatically. Whereas Flamethrower is not that, and Flamethrower also initiates the GCD. Which I guess is what makes Flamethrower different from all the other ones. And then it goes back to, well, that's what Blue Mage does, basically. Right? I'm pretty sure both Phantom... Does Phantom Flurry start the GCD? Actually, I don't think it does. Does Apocalypsis start the GCD? Been a second. Ability. Ability. So they probably don't. Just glue the flamethrower on the queen. Yeah, they could do that. Rework flamethrower to be a battery spender for AoE. That could actually be pretty interesting if they made it so that flamethrower... Like, I don't care how they do it, but that it somehow spends your battery gauge, and because it is flamethrower, I don't know, it could maybe generate heat? I'm just spitballing here. Like, I'm just thinking out loud, right? Maybe flamethrower could generate heat. I think that would be pretty good. And pretty fitting. And yeah, exactly. They could just repurpose it. They could make it so that, like if they really wanted to be channeled, they could make the channel really strong and then be like, it goes for 1 second per 10 battery gauge spent. And then, like, it generates some heat on top. And if they make the potency and potential AoE component right, you might actually want to use that in certain situations on single target. That would make your battery gauge a little more interesting than it's the button you use to summon your pet, which is like a glorified dot when it really comes to it. But it is a pet. It is officially a pet. It has pet potency. It could be a turret. Technically considering how flamethrowers work, it should spend heat. I know you're right, Nox. I can't quite remember how it used to work in Stormblood. But I do believe flamethrower was used to generate heat in Stormblood. And also, if we while we're on the subject, Nox, I am pretty sure there are several people, possibly in the chat right now, who could speak on the insane real-life inaccuracy of Machinist. Like, just generally speaking, Machinist is so far off track on a lot of things that it probably doesn't hurt anyone if it's off track on one more thing. What are you talking about? This? How do you aim this? How does the gun shoot out bigger projectiles than the gun? Floating bullets is 100% realistic, yeah. Yeah, I think it's hilarious. But that would be something that they, like... That would be something I could get behind, at least, is reworking flamethrower to have a more central role in the rotation. Like, it could still have a cooldown. Like, it has a cooldown now. They could keep that. Which would mean if they made it relevant for single target in any meaningful way, that the cooldown itself could make it not, like, invalidate other battery spender options at Thomason Queen. Because maybe the way you want to do it is that maybe you will use flamethrower to make sure that your battery gauge is just right for the 2-minute burst. Like, as some sort of, like, micro adjustment. That could be nice. Can't believe you've never seen someone shoot a saw blade out of a handgun in real life. Well, in fairness, Necrofits, the Machinist uses a special multi-tool to fire the fire the saw blade. I mean, it's still basically a gun, so it's still weird, but at least they have a specialized saw blade shooting cannon. Because shooting it out of the gun would be absurd. Since we know it's canon that the bullets are rubber. Not all of the bullets are rubber, Elaine. It's just in that specific context they were using rubber bullets. Which makes it weirder, and is exactly what I was referring to when I said some would say that Machinist is completely off track, is that apparently you can't just, I know, shocker, put any random kind of bullet into a gun and it'll work. You kind of need the appropriate kind of bullet. I know. Shocker. But machinist guns are different. They're just built different. Quite literally, they're built different. It's apparently the Warrior of Light doing something extra to do more damage. Well, I mean, the lunchbox we use to, like, charge our attacks with ether, I believe. But I'm pretty sure that it was a specific case that the bullets were rubber. I think. Maybe I remember wrong. It's been a while since I learned Machinist, so to speak. Are you serious? Aha! Time for my signature mechanic! I'll put out a blue bomb, and you have to scoot it over to me to stop my attack. I'll place the blue bomb right here, next to me. Not the brightest, these bombs. Machinist guns are pretty... Yeah, exactly. The multi-tool is also gigantic. But at least you use both hands to fire drill. Next expansion, gun axe. I mean, we have a lot of gun somethings. That would be nice. I'm still waiting for my gun shield. Gip gun shield, please. Have any of you done Memoria Misera? Especially the extreme version? We have a guy using a gun blade and a gun shield, and the way those things work in tandem could be a job. Like, that could be a job. Now, how that would actually work in, like, in a job rotation, that is a whole different story, but there is something there that would be awesome. Not waiting for Gunlands? I mean, Gunlands would be great as well, but I do recognize that Gunlands is quite insane. I would settle for Gun Shield. And the reason why I would settle for Gun Shield is because Final Fantasy XIV already has Gun Shields. They already are here in the game. Just make Machinist into Beast Tamer and shoot monsters out of our gun. I use drill. Does that shoot like a drill at me? No, it shoots a creature with a drill on its head at you. I don't know, Delane. My favorite beast, Excadrill. Fun fact, when you have metal pins inside of them, they take them out. You can feel them. Oh, yikes. Ow. Should more jobs use the offhand slot? It would be cool, but I also recognize that it feels a little pointless. By the way the game is designed as it is right now, paladins would, in 99% of the cases pretty much, want to use the matching offhand to their main hand. All the time. So it feels like just extra work for nothing. It would be cool, because then it would mean that you could, you know, mix and match your main and your offhand. But I feel like that's also rare between paladins. Like, I feel like the most common mix-up between your sword and shield is that a lot of people think it's cool to have an invisible shield. Don't feel like that really counts. Yeah, I'm using I'm using a sword and a shield from different sets. For my sword, I use this cool, awesome sword. For my shield, I don't use one. So yeah, if there was more of like a thing in actually using different offhands, then there could be more of an argument to have more jobs do that. But given that that's not really a thing, I feel like it would almost be a step back to try it again. It would also feel almost unfair to the other jobs. If they make a new job and let it use separate main and offhand, then you'll have jobs like Ninja go, well, why can't I then? Why do I have to use matching daggers? Vipers might, well, actually, Vipers might be a little, be a little bit hard to sell. Why can't I use different main and offhands? Well, because they mechanically wouldn't fit together. That's also a common thing for me, Necrophytes, is like, sometimes I'll see like a really cool sword, and then the shield that matches it is a little small. And I want a really big shield. I prefer really, really big shield. But I don't like it when they don't match. So that might just make me use a different sword. That's true, Yannick. That you might be onto something there. That could just be that all of the swords just fit together the same way. Become the French duelist with the buckler. Well, then we need red mages to have shields. Oh, hi. When did you get here? I was always here. Power shields win. Yeah, one thing that really disappointed me about the Shadowbringers relics was that the paladin shields were big, bulky shields. And the swords were also like kind of nice and big. I feel like the swords stayed big as far as I remember for the last stage. But the shield became rather small. Hey Ymir, hope you're doing well. The occasion is that I might not be able to stream on Tuesday. Next week. So we're doing it today instead. Huh? About the greatest offhand known to man. Mankind, the fabulous cape. Savage also going to be moved? Yeah, it will, but that is for different reasons. No, actually, Emir, the wedding planning there was actually planned around the fact that we had already moved Savage. That's actually like a quite interesting order of operations there. Ow. Hey, Rabbit. Hope you're doing well. Rapier's smallsword were indeed paired with a dueling cape. Huh. It's an in-game wedding whiskey. But I understand the confusion. It is between Milo and Caetsu, who are long-time parts of the community. And incidentally, Milo is in the raid team that we Savage raid once a week. So obviously, if the wedding happens to coincide with where we normally Savage raid, that wouldn't work. There are even historical manuals on the utilization of a dueling cape. I'm guessing it's mainly used to like obscure the opponent's vision of what you're doing. Ow. Kaboom! Or like a net to tangle opponent's blade. Oh yeah, that could also work. That's a little bit similar to like a parrying dagger. Where you like try to grab it. Were you here all along? I think it all comes down to like how like how long time you put into making sure that as many people can come as possible. And also like whether you are on the correct data center for everyone to show and things like that. Going back to the offhand talk, fishing needs more than just one spearfishing gig. I feel like the spearfishing gig feels like a mistake. Exactly because they only have the one. Fishing offhand needs to be a cold beer. The spearfishing gig you use for, well, you'd be shocked. Spearfishing, which you do when you go underwater, Whiskey. It has like a whole mechanic to do. It's quite interesting. But it feels so pointless. I'm not even sure about that, Necrophits, because I'm pretty sure they reworked how spearfishing works at some point in Endwalker. So I think the real problem is that they would maybe like to take backsies the spearfishing gig itself, because that seems pointless. Yeah, there you go, Emir. Then it ultimately is probably down to when it happens to happen. Food buff reminder after you exit this floor. Oh. Yeah, I could do that. And it's not a bad idea. The enemies are starting to do damage. Oh, drill wasn't ready yet. Womp womp. Oh well. Oh well. Nope, the door is not open yet. The door is not open yet. Well, Lemia, the trick is that you don't try and make... Like, if you are making a wedding, you don't try to make it next week. Like, you just go, oh, we want to get an eternal bonding ceremony, so we just do it immediately. You, like, try and plan it in the future, so that you have a chance of figuring out when people can. And that way, there's a much greater chance people can find a hole that matches your schedule. So I don't think it'll be never. Treasure! Oh, strength! Nice. Kobold's rep. That's one of those from ARR, right? Abilities unavailable. No, my Peloton! Just do it on a Tuesday after resets. No one would be busy that day. You sure? It's actually if you're still working on the rep, a trick you can do on days where you're not like doing anything in particular is the fates for the various A Realm Reborn allied societies' reputations that, like, give an item that you need for a specific daily, you could just farm a bunch of them on a random day. And then if the quest happens to come up, you can just go, oh, you mean this? And then, like, save a moment. That is, of course, like, a case of, well, if you have nothing better to do, because worst case, the quest doesn't actually come up often enough for you to spend all of them before you've maxed out the reputation. But there's a thing you can do, and it is something that I think people don't consider always. But it does mean that if you had, like, you could easily get some quick reputation on a day where you wouldn't have time otherwise. Oh boy, this is not good. Not on the floor where I don't have abilities. Exactly, nom nom nom. Adventurer! I lost my family hammer! You must help me! You mean this? My hammer! Wait, did you steal this? Is that from Viva la Dirt League? Fair enough, midichlorian. I would say it would be pretty prudent to just have a save ready to go past floor 100, but depends on what you find difficult as you progress. I'm pretty sure that joke, nom nom nom, also sort of like, it also sort of originates from RuneScape. Like, there are some quests there where, like, you could have the exact thing that the quest requires, and the NPCs will call you out on it and be like... Or, well, they might not call you out on it, but they'll be like, oh, I need this extremely specific thing, and then your character will be like, oh, you mean this? And then the NPC will be like, wait, you had... Like, how did you have that? And, like, the Imp Orc quest is one of them. I don't think it's the only one. But it is certainly one of them. Auto heal is disabled. Auto heal is disabled. Oh, Whiskey, I can tell you that if you enjoy the slower pace of the game, old school RuneScape is still excellent. I'm sure RuneScape 3 is decent as well, but I've only tried it in the context of an Iron Man. So I didn't have to deal with the market and the various store items and so on. That's a decent game. And even further, I'm telling you guys, all these companies are missing out. That, like, they just need to sponsor me. I'm amazing at this. If you like the idea of the grinding associated with RuneScape, but don't like all the MMO parts of the game, and don't like all the walking between places, Melvor Idle is an idle game that is basically RuneScape. It's basically RuneScape. I'm also pretty sure that it's supported by Jagex. Rabanastre. The Alliance raid roulette is that's fun. I don't know, is that bad? Well, maybe one day, Ymir. Oh. I take it 1.5 million isn't enough, Yannick? Yeah, I know, right, Whiskey? But I'm pretty sure if you go to the Steam page, I don't know if it's straight up published by Jagex or something. But yeah, if you tried it for like 5 minutes and you've played RuneScape, you'll go, yes, this is basically RuneScape. I see, Yannick. Oh, it's many years ago that I actually played, whoops, Cookie Clicker. I usually feel that kind of idle game quickly just becomes too much in a way. Yeah, that's a funny one, Marcus. The game is like, oh well, I just realized that this is actually a real big problem. I don't know if I actually needed to do that, but it would be the stupidest way to die with all of this on floor 98 because I pulled 2 mobs and items were off the table. And I had 3 Serenities. I was just about to say the game going, oh yeah, well there's this gloom thing and you can't use items, but you have haste though. Like it's trying to like buy you into letting it have the gloom. That's rather specific, by the way, Yannick. 1.52 million specifically. But I'm guessing that the margin is rather small for reaching the record. So you need every point you can get before the hard part. Oh, hi. Anyway. Yeah, exactly, Nori. RuneScape is fine. It's just what you're into. Like, what your preference is. Ow. For games. And I would say, like, there are definitely times I'm like, I could kind of go for, like, something like RuneScape. But exactly RuneScape is a bit much. And then something like Melvor is a bit like an easier commitment. What's RuneScape? It's a very old MMORPG at this point. I believe the more popular variant is old school RuneScape. And then we have Melvor, as I mentioned, which is an idle game inspired by RuneScape. It's free, like old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3 are both free to play. With like a subscription option. So you could try it if you think it sounds interesting. Although it's free to play in a slightly different way from Final Fantasy XIV. Does it grind so I'm out? Fair enough. Yeah, speaking of which, Nori, I think it was like a couple of years ago where a good friend of mine who has always been sort of into RuneScape, especially after that point, but he randomly asked me if I wanted to like try old school RuneScape from the start with him. And so we made new accounts free to play, and I think it took us like a week before we had kind of exhausted the stuff in free to play. Like, we hadn't reached 99 with all of the skills, but we had done like was it the Dragon Slayer quest, I believe? And then we bought membership to continue. But it was like a week, I think. But it's more of a taster, but that's not to say, like, if you don't want to pay, you can do a lot of stuff on the free-to-play model and just enjoy that. But you will quickly run out of unique things to do. I want to beat some games on my backlog. And in that case, you probably shouldn't add RuneScape to it. It is technically possible to complete RuneScape in various ways. But the things that people do that they consider completing usually take years. There's also the part that I know that some more hardcore players of RuneScape usually have several accounts at once, and they play all of them simultaneously. Like, not multi-boxing, as in, well, this account, I'm playing an Iron Man, which is, it's a little bit like the Wrath Games thing with, you can't trade with anyone, you have to do everything yourself, you have to do everything alone, all of that kind of shenanigans. That's like the general Iron Man thing. And then this account is just my main where I do whatever. And then this other account, I just have an extra one, which I use specifically for farming this particular thing that I sometimes want on my main. And this other account, I use for this other thing. Red Games based his rule set off of RuneScape Iron Man. And that does not surprise me, and I'm pretty sure I actually knew that, come to think of it. But it's still easier to explain that's the rule set, like the kind of rule set that he uses, than like not mentioning it, I think. But yeah, that it isn't uncommon for people that play RuneScape a little bit more religiously to have multiple accounts running at once. I think I've only watched the first episode, Nori, so that's why I don't know that much. However, I basically have proof that I know who he is, because I made a video called something to the effect of "You cannot solo Final Fantasy XIV, but why not?" Which I released like a week or two after his journey started. Because his thumbnail made me curious. And then I got inspired to make a video. He even commented on it, so he also knows that I exist, technically. The thing is, I wasn't even trying to crush the dreams, I was just trying to be realistic. Crossover win? Oh, I don't know. Let me just put it like this, Nori. The reason why Susano was such a big, important level of progression, and why it mattered so much, was if you watch my video on the subject, Nora, you'll know that the actual limiting factor to soloing Final Fantasy XIV was Susano. I basically gave that one for free before he had barely started his journey. That's why it was so relevant that it was possible, which is also the reason why we had people on this channel, like people that part of the community, trying to solo Susano like really early in Dawn Trail to see if it was finally possible. Now Warrior of Light is the wall. Yeah, and I think, unfortunately, that one would only be possible through, like, the same kind of means as a Crystal Tower, where he would probably have to bring 7 people for the limit break to be available. I might have painted myself into a corner here. A little bit. Yeah, I kind of realized, Caroline, but I like by the point it was like, wait a minute, I should have used resolution. There were a lot of ads. Can War of Light be attacked while casting his LB3? No. Like, you straight up cannot skip it. It's a mandatory intermission, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that you can't skip it at all. I just want to add that it didn't occur to me that that was all of the ads in the fight. That was a coincidence. Right, so remember everyone that Yannick said that 1.5 million wasn't good enough. I'm on 1.3 million. And I have like 2/3 of the kills that Yannick reported. Let me try and see if I can find it. You know, for what? To beat the high score. There is. At least for, I think it was Reaper? I know, Jim. I just decided not to. You'll also seen that I did that on some of the other sets. The blue towers. No worries, Jim. Yeah, I didn't know either, Solicization. I was just, like, surprised. And that also made more sense that Caroline said using 2 resolutions is safer. Initially, I was thinking, why specifically 2? But that's of course because he summons the ads in waves. You'd want to like clear them out twice. instead of once, which I did by accident. It was a lot more natural for me to do it on Pictomancer because I couldn't really attack while kiting all of the mobs. So the moment that they started to hurt too much, I would feel compelled to clear them. Although I also discovered on Pictomancer that Pictomancer's AoE damage in Palace of the Dead is so insanely massive that I could basically one-shot the Ats with the AoE component of things like Living Muse if they happen to be next to the boss. So I didn't really feel compelled to deal with them much. It's when he splits the arena in 3. Like, that also is something that comes back to, like, something that I was talking about a little bit earlier, about how Pictomancer is different from Machinist, is that while Pictomancer doesn't have very much utility, they do so much damage that anything that is made easier by just damage, nothing else, just damage, Pictomancer is amazing at. Which also makes Pictomancer have this weird experience where the first, like, 100 plus floors, you hardly fight anything. Because you just run up to something and then you just barf damage numbers on them. Like, incidentally, a job that can prepare a Giga Burst whenever they're not in combat is really good at bursting in Palace of the Dead. Weird. Very strange. Who would have thunked? Picto can completely skip meteors. On Behemoth? I mean, yes. I think that's like mostly kind of the idea. I just realized that I missed someone who gave me a pat. Silver chest. A random silver chest. Yeah, that might be a problem, Mimir, but I'm pretty sure that one is a case where, like, enough damage might be able to skip it, I think. I think. The horde is on this floor. Oh, there it is. Treasure. Nope. Miss Rearin, it's definitely a mimic. I mean, you should have been here when we had a mimic in a mimic that then exploded. I'm pretty sure it exploded. We also had a mimic that exploded, just separately. Like, the only way it could have gotten worse if it kept going for longer, or alternatively, if it was possible for a chest to be 2 mimics. Like, they start replicating. Treasure. It's a rage. Safety. Falcon Punch! Schrodinger's mimic can't hurt you. Only when they actually turn out to be real. Boink. I wonder if they added a jumping animation for these guys specifically because players can be them. I should have used a fortune. And smack. Although on the other hand, I might just have been very disappointed. Lo-fi beats to murder to. Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's like all these cool exotic names in Freerun. And then it's like a German watching it like, really? Are you serious? Yep, that was a Gubal library, Marcus. What does Ubel mean? N equals distant? Oh. Like how in Danish that would have been fjern. Bad. Does Ubel just mean bad? Was it Ubel? I think it was Ubel. That is quite weird. When someone just walks up to and introduces themselves as, yeah, so I'm the bad guy? Wait, yeah, sure, what's your name? The bad guy. Like three words? No, that's like a dash between the and bad. So your name is the bad guy. Yes. Your last name is Guy. Yes, what of it? The parents must have wanted a son. What should we name her? Bad. Stark equals strong. Oh yeah, like sterk in Danish. Oh, it would have been pretty funny if their names had been Danish, I tell you. It wouldn't have been that much different as it turns out. But it would have been very weird if the names had been in Danish. I tell you. Very weird. At least for me. I'd just be like, what? Isn't there... I don't know if it's already out. Isn't there like another season of Frieren coming? Vinland Saga has a bunch of Danish. Well, I mean, that's not very surprising. Would have been weirder to have a random, like, fantasy setting where, like, all of the characters just happen to be named in Danish. Like, random Danish words. But Vinland Saga, I feel like it would almost be weird if there wasn't anyone named something in Danish. Random goblin adventurer, you must die. Excuse me? Squirrel! Squirrel! Oh, haste. How much? You actually damage now? Ow, okay. A little bit of damage. Solicization, they didn't finish the journey in Season 1. Like, they're not finished. It would be like if I just stopped a Palace of the Dead run on, like, floor 130 or something and just went, I'm good. They're not finished. Also, the manga is not of Frieren is not done either. But I think I remember seeing like a chart where they showed that I think the anime caught up like halfway through the manga or something. Is that right? Hey Jack, hope you're doing well. Ow. Don't goblin rush me. Is going so far? I don't think we've been close to death yet. We've had some weird, we've had a few weird pulls, but we've not been in any real danger. And in regards to the stream itself, turns out my router is dying. And that's the problem. Which is why there has not been any problems on this stream as far as I can see. Hello. Purity. Oh, do not care. Let's leave. Wait, what's this? I should have just not seen it. It was cursed to be a mimic the moment that I missed it initially upon entering the room. What's this? Death! Ah! Miss Freeran, stop touching chests. But there could be loot in it. There could be sweet loot in it. There could be a pomment of steel in it. I know that feeling, Giruhin. Does that also apply to Freeran? Or have you seen Freeran? Because I would say there's not that much stuff there. You just start from episode 1. Exactly, but Fern, there could be a grimoire. But I can say with Freeran, Irene, that there's just one season. You just start from episode 1. And as others said, Freeran is a lot more about the journey. You will probably know, honestly, whether you're into that story or not within a few episodes. So, like, in my opinion, there is no, oh, it gets better by episode 35. Like, that's not happening. First of all, there is not 35 episodes, so that's not even an option. But you'll know reasonably quickly whether that story is for you or not. I mean, I'm too intimidated by the idea of anime as a hypothetical monolithic institution in a way. I get it. The reason why I'm trying to emphasize that Freeran isn't that long, because it's one season, is because a lot of the big animes are like, oh yeah. I'm sure you might enjoy Naruto. It's just like, I believe before it gets to the Boruto part, there's like 700 episodes. Have you seen Made in Abyss? No, I have not. Just start One Piece. How many episodes are they up to now? Over 1,000. Oh boy. I've seen like glances of Made in Abyss, I think. I don't know if it's for me. They're remaking the One Piece anime soon. That sounds like a lot of work. Made in Abyss is Palace of the Dead. Oh. I see. That is pretty funny, because when we're talking about a story in the idea of Palace of the Dead, I initially thought a little bit of like the start of Sword Art Online, but I also feel that Sword Art Online very quickly like skipped on that, so it doesn't really get the effect across. And then like later they stopped doing that anyway. Exactly, Necrofits. It's like they decided that the floor thing that they started with wasn't actually interesting, when in reality a lot of the people that would watch Sword Art Online would have wanted to see that. Like, legitimately in the way that, oh, no. Don't skip the grind. That's the thing we want to see in an anime. That's why we're here. Don't give us all that in a quick flashback. Show us how it's done. The SAO progressive movies go into the first arc with better detail. That is interesting that the movies do it in better detail. Isn't it? It's a very strong ladybug. Yeah, I agree, Midichlorian. I often mention Log Horizon as my favorite anime, but I will say Frieren is very high up there as well. But Log Horizon is awesome. Oh, fortune! These monsters that are stronger on this floor have a chance to drop extra loot. Oh boy. Yay. I cast Shriek! PMMM? I don't know what that is. No, I have not watched Madoka Magica Ymir. I have not. Steel. What are you? Alteration. I don't care. What is Dungeon Meshi? Is that the one where they make food? Out of monsters and dungeons? Have you watched Domestic Girlfriend? I have not. It feels like watching a D&D session. You know what? That makes perfect sense because it's almost like only in a D&D session would your team go, right, so that big monster there, yes, what does it taste like if we eat it? Like, how about you kill it first? Fair enough, but meow. Meow. Wildfire always feels so overkill. What are you? Safety. I guess in case there's a trap right next to me. Fortune, just as I'm leaving. It's Alicanto! Alicanto! Lep. Lep. I cast Fireball! And Fireball! And Fireball! And Fireball. And run! I cast Fireball! I think we reached the boss much faster than the previous set of 10 floors. I'm pretty sure we had less than 30 minutes left before we reached the boss last time. Oh. I should have waited a bit with that summon. Oh well. Cha-cha. Yeah, but you're gonna get your party members. It's fine. I'm a conjuration wizard. That's the one where your fireballs don't hit your party members, right? Which anime was that, Emir? Or was that one you mentioned earlier? Oh, sorry, it was Evocation. Right. I'm an evocation wizard. Blip, blip. Right, the spell shaping. Well, Imi, you said, I will always have a special place in my heart for the bad anime I watched as a kid. So I'm like, which one was that? Solicitation says, for Red Mage, is it better to hold resources you're not casting when Flesh and Contra 6 comes off cooldown, or to use resources on cooldown? You want to be sure that Flesh and Contra 6 come out on cooldown. Sometimes your resources can be, like, for instance, Swift Cast can be held for a little bit, if you really need to. An acceleration, you know, you can hold one charge and like the second, like the extra one just charge up. But optimally, like in the perfect world, you're not holding anything. The thing you might be holding is you might hold one acceleration exactly so you can have it overlap with Flesh and or Contra 6. You might hold a melee combo so that Flesh and or Contra 6 happens to come up during the melee combo. Again, so they don't drift anywhere. But I would say, from my opinion anyway, is that Flesh and Contra 6 like rank higher than using Swiftcast on cooldown. But that is something like that you learn to master. It is also complicated because things like Swiftcast also serve as a utility. I don't know, I mean, I don't think Pokemon was bad. Like, back then, it's good anime. For children, anyway. Might also be decent for adults. In some ways. And Yu-Gi-Oh! Was also nice. I don't know about Inazuma, I didn't watch that. Necrophid says, bless the Yu-Gi-Oh! English dub for inventing the Shadow Realm because people dying wasn't kid-friendly. Yeah, people just dying was too scary. It was better that they got sent to the Shadow Realm for eternity. That was better, somehow. Shoes! A hat! Yeah, and finger guns. Another hat. Finger guns is so funny in Yu-Gi-Oh! They can't have real guns. Don't you remember how that was a problem in Pokemon? We can't have real guns. What do we do then? Just edit out the guns and have the characters point at the person. That totally won't be weird anywhere. Hey, Ham. Hope you're doing well. Is my favorite rice balls being jelly donuts in the Pokemon dub. You know, the funnier thing is that because a lot of other translations around the world were based on the English dub, a lot of other countries just came up with other things that those rice balls were, but not rice balls. But it did indeed spawn a meme. There is something hilarious about a character holding up something that is obviously something and then calling it something that it's definitely not. The Welsh dub of Beyblade. Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 was never localized because there was no making that kid-friendly. I'm pretty sure I've heard cases that there were... like, that the various fights were some sort of magical means were going to send the character to the Shadow Realm or something in Yu-Gi-Oh! That the original was a lot more brutal. Like, there were cases where the expectation was the person was going to die quite horribly. Yet there's still the question of, is that worse than being sent to the Shadow Realm? There's also the funny... the very funny origin of Yu-Gi-Oh! Being that it was just about games, like, in general, and then they invented the card game there, and it was so like, it was so much more interesting that that's what it became about. Anyway, we got to floor 110. That's good. That's pretty good. Slightly weird because a better starting point might have been 100, but I felt like 110 was a little bit better. We were not there. It felt like the time permitted, so we did that. So we'll see how far we get next time. Also, I don't know if these are valuable at all. I don't think these are valuable. Wow. Wow. No, I don't think they're very... They might not be very valuable. It wasn't quite like the time where I looted a jet black die. Alright, Emir, enjoy your evening. Like, there's a quite big difference between the good and the bad loot here. You could get something that is worth 1 gil, or you could get something worth 500,000 gil. Completely random chance. Well, not it's like one thing is more random than the other because there's like better loot in the higher floors, but still. But yeah, I think this is a decent time. Yeah, same thing really. 1 gil, 500,000 gil. What difference does it make? Well, if you don't need money, it's basically the same. I did my first favors on Island Sanctuary, and my first 2 boxes both had Adenium whistles. Is that the mount? That's pretty nice. I only bought a relatively low amount of the random boxes from the Island Sanctuary, and then I decided to just grab the tokens. Because the tokens had a fixed, like a somewhat fixed value. But I have noticed recently that the value of the tokens are dropping. Like, the supply is very clearly heavily outweighing the demand. So there might actually be more reason to grab the random boxes now. Exactly, they're like 6k each. I have both mounts, but the way I went about it was that, like, I collected the tokens and then I bought the remaining tokens I needed at some point, and then I just started selling tokens myself to make back what I had, like, invested. And I have both mounts as a result. But maybe I should try the random boxes a bit. If they can hold something like dye, then that is probably better spent. Even if there's a relatively low chance for that. I'm also like, the thing is, the way I go about my Island Sanctuary is that I'm mainly just doing the felicititious favors. And then I'm just like stockpiling resources mostly. And then selling over excess, because I think it would be funny one day to have like close to or actually 999 of all of the things on the Island Sanctuary. I think that would be really funny. But it takes a while. The bottleneck is the produce, the various greens and vegetables. Island is a great passive way to get high cordials. Yeah. Unless you already have plenty. You know what is also a good way to get passive off? It's very good for getting passive cherry pink dye. And that is why I have 999 of them. Most of it bought with curries. I used to have to buy my cherry pink dye. Look at me now. Also great for budget crafting set materia. Yeah, I suppose so. Isn't materia reasonably expensive for curries, though? Like, I'm pretty sure you could very quickly dry out. Unless, like, you're going full blast on your Island Sanctuary. Like, part of the reason why I'm not generating very many curries is exactly because I'm just doing the bare minimum. And it's, like, it's basically just barely breaking even with, like, the spendings on the island itself, kind of. So far, because I sell, like, I trade off when I have over 950 of anything. So, like, when everything has reached, like, about 950, I might just, like, go, let's go for 999. Like, if I'm still doing it at that point. The thing is, it takes so incredibly long to reach that point. Like, I have just recently passed over 500 of all of the vegetables. And, like, you know, all of the plants. And they're the bottleneck, because you're making, like, 5 of each every 3 days. And you also need to spend some for food for the pasture. So that kind of pulls it down a peg on the other end. But it is increasing slowly. And I have like nearly 400 of everything at least. Something like that. I don't have 400 of everything that is crafted. I thought that was a little ridiculous. Just make items for the sake of making them. But maybe I'll do that at some point. You actually don't have to feed your animals if you're a monster. Well, they will still produce something, I believe, if you don't feed them. but they produce more if you do feed them. So I do anyway. I even feed them the good stuff, the premium food, because I can deal with it. I know, Nori, I actually used to do that. That's how I got all those curries. Like, my entire island is set up to do it. I just, at some point, I just realized that I couldn't be bothered. Because, like, I'm pretty sure you both have to, like, there are those recommendations for optimization, but then you also have to, like, sometimes adjust your setup for the felicititious tokens or what it is. Guy feeds his local griffins with premium fish caught in the Sea of Clouds, rumored to be spawns of Bismarck. Premium fish. That would be pretty funny. I don't actually have a griffin in my island sanctuary. I have the most of the rare things from the original batch of rare things. And then they added more and I was like, nah, there isn't space for all of them anyway, so I can't be bothered. So I just didn't. I'm pretty sure there's more rare creatures on the island than there are spaces in the pasture, so it doesn't work if you want all of them. They also just barely, like, they filled it out so that your produce, there's exactly enough spaces for one of each. Put them in the Omicron mount. This one? Flying jellyfish with ears. But yeah, anyway, as I said earlier, yesterday and also Thursday, I had a lot of trouble with frame drops and connection issues on the stream specifically. Tonight, nothing. The difference, my router isn't being used. I'm just connected directly to the connection. So I think my router is... it's fine, but apparently it has gotten old and weak enough that it cannot handle the amount of stability that and speed that a stream requires. But that should mean that the frame drop issues should be resolved now. And then I have to figure out what I do about the router. But that is the ending of that story of the dropping frames. Right, nom nom nom. Good night to you. I think I will also be rounding up the stream. So, if you enjoyed this particular stream, it helps me a lot if you leave a like here on YouTube. That tells the algorithm that this was an enjoyable stream. It'd like other people to enjoy it as well. So, thank you so much for the support. And if you'd like to be part of the Discord community server, there's a link right there. There you will find the weekly schedule, which I usually update Sunday or Monday. I'll update it like shortly after this stream, as a matter of fact. There you will see what else is, like what is coming up in a given week. And if you go to the announcement room, you will see links to streams and videos when I put them out. And if you go to the role assignments room and grab the reminder role, you will get a notification whenever I post a video or a stream, as well as like 15 minutes before stream starts, so you don't miss a second. And if you'd like to support the channel even more directly, you can become a member of the channel, you can gift memberships, you can use the super chat, or if you don't want any of that, there's also a Ko-fi link in the description. It all supports me and the channel directly, so I can do stuff like this for all of you's entertainment and joy. So thank you so much for the support. And I think that'll be everything from me tonight, aside from the schedule that I'll post shortly. You'll also be able to find the schedule, of course, on the YouTube channel itself, and on the Twitter or X account. There's also something, so you can find it there as well. It's all down to what you prefer. But yeah, you could also do all of the above. That's true, Coco. With that said, good night, good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world, and I hope to see you all very soon. Bye-bye!